I'm willing to say he's the basement coach of the year.
Two games, they're gonna get something rolling.
This is the Sports Saga podcast, and it's presented by Al Dias Electric. Hello, everyone, and a big thank you for joining us today. Brady Kudo here, Keegan Hamlet still under the weather, but we're very, very happy to have our guest here all the way from Birmingham, England, a bucket list place for me to visit England. It is Adam Taylor. Adam is a journalist, writes for multiple Celtics website. So a big thank you, Adam, for joining us today. And most importantly, how are you?
Hey, thanks for the intro, man. I'm doing well, thank you. Thank you for having me on. I do not recommend England, though.
Really? But you're still there.
I know, but it's hard to get out. It's hard to get out. Harder to get into America than it is to get out of England.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
All right. It's really good to know. All right, but you've been covering the Celtics for a while now. So firstly, take us through the steps of starting to cover for the Celtics and maybe why that team, why the Boston Celtics?
Yeah, I mean, I've followed the Celtics since 1994. So wow. I've been a fan of that team for a long time, through the Rick Pitino years, through the rebuilds, all the struggles. So when I decided to start covering basketball, like, it was just the natural progression to do the team that I followed since I was a kid, right? Just basically I started doing an independent blog, independent podcast, and then over time built up like a nice portfolio, and then just started sending it out to websites that I read consistently, pick places where I thought I could take that next step. A couple of lucky breaks along the way, and then here I am.
All about getting your name out there. We're starting to learn that.
Yes, sir.
To take off in this podcasting journey here. So again, we're going to continue on this Celtics train. Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals is tonight. I picked Boston to win Game 6. They didn't. Oh, well. But we saw what the Celtics, like what they did wrong, obviously. And it's they didn't defend Jimmy Butler as good as they could have. Again, Jimmy's one of the better players, obviously, in the NBA. The shooting, at least from behind the arc, I feel like was slow. The turnover game really, really killed them. What was your evaluation and analysis of Game 6, and what do you think the keys to the game are for Game 7?
I've literally just wrote a keys to the game article, so this is coming at the best time. Game 6, I think that Boston just didn't match Miami's intensity. Like, you knew Miami were going to come out backs against the wall. They're a very physical, very aggressive team. You have to come out ready to claw for every possession, right? Like, I think that because of how banged up Miami have been, like, Jimmy Butler hasn't been very good for the last 2 or 3 games leading into Game 6. No Tyler Hero. Kyle Lowry's looked a shadow of himself. It was quite easy to kind of think like, we can come out here in second gear and probably still get it done. And suddenly Jimmy Butler's like, no, I'm 2012 LeBron James. I'm just going to dominate. and things quickly unravel. Now, the Celtics did kind of bring things back towards the end of the first half. But then they went away from Tatum and Brown. Like, barely the two of them combined took barely any shots. It was very much an egalitarian offense. And I get that during the regular season. But when you're playing in a closeout Game 6, the ball needs to be in your star's hands, right? So Jason Tatum doesn't need to be your playmaker at that point. He needs to be your primary offensive weapon. Run as many actions as you can. Get Tatum going downhill, get him going from that mid-range, then start extending him out to the three-point line. Do not let Jaylen Brown have to dribble the ball, put him in positions to pull up, put him in positions to catch the ball on the rip through and just finish around the rim. Neither of those two things happened. And then Miami are really good at generating offense out of the corners. Like, they're really good at running DHOs. They're good at running anything off the wing, whether it's pin downs, zoom actions, whatever it may be. And the Celtics side to make sure nobody was cutting in for any secondary actions. And it just gave people like Kyle Lowry like clear lanes to the hoop with kickouts going back out to the perimeter. Max Strus got going. It was just everything that Boston had done well leading up to this game, they'd done terribly in this game.
I agree. And I agree with your point where you got to get it to Brown and Tatum more, and they should have done that. But Tatum had, 4 turnovers in that fourth quarter. And I really think like in that moment, you just got to give it to the hottest guy on the floor. And in that moment, it was Derek White, where I think if they like, Derek White had a couple moments where he had those open looks. And I really think as much as we want to get to the stars, and I agree with you, I'm not saying you're wrong. But however, you just got to get it in that moment to, I think, who's hot. And it was Derek White, who had a great game. And I think, again, the biggest thing was ball security. They didn't match the intensity. Some may say the refs, but like, again, that was both ways. Like they were just flat out on both ends. Boston and Miami, not good.
I never blame the refs for like, I just think that blaming the refs are going to do what the refs are going to do, right? It's your job as the team to deal with that and then overcome it.
I think some people were playing that Celtics versus refs game, and it wasn't necessarily like that. I mean, it had its moments, but definitely, I mean, they had nobody to blame but themselves. And something I also noticed, and maybe this, I don't know if it was part of the game plan. I didn't see as much Peyton Pritchard as I wanted to. He wasn't hurt. He just didn't play. And arguably, he's been the best shooter of this series. Arguably. What do you think? Like, I think, again, the ball security and Ime Udoka are to blame. Those are the two. And hopefully today, we'll get into your keys in the game, Adam. They can just flip the switch. I feel like every time they've come out to a loss, whether it's been on their home court or on their away court, they've managed to dominate. Do you see that trend continuing?
Yeah, I mean, they're going to come out with a lot more intensity. This team hates to get punked, right? I think they've lost. I think since February, it's something like they've lost 2 games in a row twice. Like they always bounce back off a loss. You made a point about Derek White being a hot hand and feeded Derek White. I agree to an extent. Yeah. But it's not that Jason Tatum wasn't a hot hand. It's that he took 4 shots in 2 quarters of basketball.
Right.
You know what I mean? This is an all NBA level talent. You know what I mean? He's a rising superstar.
I agree.
So that was a big issue for me. But like Peyton Pritchard, you know, he is probably the best shooter in the series in terms of consistency, in terms of range. Absolutely. Can also penetrate off the dribble, but he's a defensive liability. And Jimmy Butler is destroying Marcus Smart and Derek White on the perimeter. Putting Peyton Pritchard in there is just asking to get cooked. I think that Boston come out with a real hardcore mentality and they fight and they claw. But if the ball's not in Tatum's hands, if it's not in Brown's hands to finish shots off, if they go back to 7 shot attempts between their 2 top tier talents, they're going to lose this game. They have to give the ball to the guys that are there, that are being there to win games. We're talking an all-NBA offensive talent. We're talking a guy that's on the precipice of his second All-Star appearance next year if he carries this level of form through and stays healthy. The only reason Jaylen Brown wasn't an All-Star this year was because he dealt with injuries at the start of the year, COVID, whatever. So, you know, we're talking 2 All-Star 2-way wings and they're not touching the ball. So we can look at you can look at Al Horford, you can look at Derek White, you can talk about everybody else in this rotation. But the fact of the matter is Game 7s are decided by star talent. And then your star talent has to have the ball.
Absolutely. So with that being said, what is your game prediction tonight?
I've got Boston winning and I've got it being very close. Like, I think this will be a game that goes down to 2 possessions, possibly even an overtime, which would be the worst thing physically possible for either team. I do think Boston win this game, but I do think that, you know, if Jimmy Butler gets going, if they don't find a way to shut down Bam Adebayo as a facilitator on the high post, there is a chance that Miami steal this game.
I think history is going to repeat itself. And what I mean by that is, again, we look at the time Celtics have lost in this series. You talk about coming right out of the gate, really, really intense. Fight, scratch, claw, do anything you need to do. This is Game 7. We saw Game 7 against the Bucks. Arguably, that was the best. No, not arguably. That was the best game the Celtics played that series. I don't think it's going to be close. I don't think Miami's going to put up 100 points tonight. I'm looking at like a 110-95. And I think Boston will have a date with Golden State in the NBA Finals. Can they beat Golden State in a 7-game series? No, I don't see that. But I think to call, like, especially this comeback, right? When we started 2022, I think the Boston Celtics, correct me if I'm wrong, were projected to be in the play-in tournament.
No, you're right. Yeah, that's where they started the year.
And they rose to the 2 seed. So if they were to end the season tonight, I'm not saying this was finals or bust. But they're good if they lose tonight, which I don't think they will. They're going to look back and they're going to be like, that could have been so much better. Where if they get to the finals, they can look at the season as a massive success. Because this team is built to win the NBA championship. When you really, really think about it, they have the star power, not star power, but they have pieces around Tatum. They have the shooters. They have the defense. They have the in and out game. I really think the score of this game is going to be around that 110-95 range. And I'm going to take Boston to win it. And my original prediction of Celtics in 7 will be correct. Hopefully.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's wood, but I'm going to knock on it just in case. So let's dive right in here. Let's look ahead. Let's say the NBA season is over. The NBA draft is looming. I know there's a guy that I want the Celtics to take, but he's going to go in the top 5. Saves Jaden Ivey from Purdue. Like, they're not going to get him. I think it's really hard to predict who they're going to take in the draft. So let's skip the draft. Let's go right to free agency. You have some free agents that you think the Celtics should target, and I want to hear them. So give us your wish list, if you will.
Yeah, so obviously a lot of this depends on whether the first one depends on whether you can find a way of moving on from Daniel Tice. I think that while Tice is a good fit, it's clear that he's not capable of backing up Robert Williams, because the Celtics need a rim runner coming off the bench. They don't need a versatile pick and roll guy like Tice, because that's not the type of center they're playing with anymore. You've got Grant Williams covering Al Horford at the 4. So you need somebody, and that's like a like for like exchange, basically. You need something similar with Robert Williams. So JaVale McGee is probably my pick. Okay. My top choice of bringing somebody in off the bench. Yeah. If you can move on from Daniel Tice, I think JaVale McGee makes a ton of sense. Rim runner, athletic, good shot blocker, good screener. You're going to get him on a minimum deal. He's going to come in. He's going to play his role. Good veteran presence. So that's my first choice. If you can move on from Daniel Tice, replace him with JaVale McGee, I think that really improves your bench unit in terms of the non-Robert Williams minutes. Plus, you can never rely on Williams to be healthy, and McGee can step into that starting 5 quite seamlessly. I think another wing is like really important off this bench. Somebody that can lighten the load on Tatum and Brown. Yes. I don't think this is possible because Golden State have just been too good and come too far in the postseason for him to want to leave. Otto Porter Jr., I think that he's the perfect fit for this Celtics bench. I agree. Outside of that, I like the look of I liked Ricky Rubio last year. I like him this year because he's going to be. I think they need to target Mo Bamba. See, I like Bamba, but are you going to get him? Exactly. Can you afford him? Exactly. The Celtics are only going to have part of the mid-level exception available, from what I can gather. So I just think that Mo Bamba is going to get offers outside of what Boston can pay. That was my what's the word I want? My big question. Can they afford him? But I picked Mo Bamba because, again, I don't really think this is going to be somebody who is going to take the veteran minimum. Like JaVale McGee makes way more sense than Mo Bamba. I agree. But I look at it at this as an age factor. Al Horford is 36 years old. You got to have somebody to come in and essentially succeed him. Mo Bamba is 24, and he just had his career best season. I understand he started, and I think Vucevic down in Orlando stunted his growth a little bit. But I really think, and you take a look at a guy like Ime Udoka, who, when you think about it, has helped develop some really good centers. Tim Duncan. He helped develop Jakob Poeltl.
He helped develop Nick Claxton in his one season in Brooklyn. And I'm not saying, these guys are, Claxton and Pirtle, that is. I'm not saying they're top 10 centers in the NBA. No, but they're reliable role players. And I really think Claxton, give it a few years, he can be a legitimate starter in one of the better centers in this league. Pirtle, not so much. But again, Bobby, he's a rim protector. He's a big body. Another one of those big bodies that they really need off the bench, who rebounds very well. Not a great shooter, but it is what it is. Willie Cauley-Stein is another name that comes to mind, but you said JaVale McGee. I think on it, that honestly makes the most sense. And you talk about a wing, Otto Porter. I'm just trying to think other wings. I would say if they were pending free agents, one of the Bogdanovich brothers, but none of them are free agents. I've always enjoyed watching them play basketball. Another name that comes to mind is Kyle Anderson of the Grizzlies, but I really don't think he fits their style well. But maybe they don't get another wing, and maybe you see like an Aaron Nesmith more, see him play more minutes, but I don't know if that's that's part of his future, although he is a great shooter. So would you rather, if you're Brad Stevens, bring in a veteran wing like Otto Porter or Kyle Anderson or someone like that? Or would you stick to the young gun and Aaron Nesmith, give him a promotion, and then maybe draft another wing in the second round?
I mean, I don't want that second round pick to get used anyway, because they're not going to play. And I've been on Aaron Nesmith's side for a long time. I think that Aaron Nesmith has got something there. I also think that if Imo Udoka's not going to play him, you're best to trade him and get some value back. Right now, another reason I'm out on Mo Bamba is, like you said, you need a replacement for Horford, but Horford's played the 4 all season. He hasn't played the 5. So Mo Bamba is like, so I think that, maybe if you want to go somewhere where like you want to play that you could slide to the floor a little bit and get that playmaking, not really get that freeze, but get that physicality. Yusuf Nurkic makes sense. Maybe you can do something there to get Nurkic. It'd include moving on from Aaron Nesmith as part of that package, because Portland are going to be trying to retool and rebuild at the same time. Could that work? I like Nurkic. I think that could be a good option. Would Nurkic be willing to come off the bench, though? Like, that's another question you have to ask. Same as Mo Bamba. He's had a year as a starter. Is he going to be willing to go to Boston and play second fiddle to Robert Williams and Al Horford? It is tough. In terms of the wing, if you can't get Otto Porter Jr., you definitely promote Aaron Nesmith, give him and start letting him prove his capabilities. Now, he came into the league billed as a shooter. I think he was miscast. I think he's more of a slasher, more of a Jaylen Brown and a JJ Redick. Do you know what I mean? And that's a good thing. That's not a bad thing. He can play defense. He's super energetic. I think Aaron Nesmith next season should get minutes, but if he doesn't, then you move on from him early and try and entice somebody like Porter Jr. into that role instead.
Especially watching this Eastern Conference Finals. You could call me crazy, but I think this is a very realistic possibility. You want to trade Aaron Nesmith? Okay. I'll give you a guy that really should have been playing more in this season and hasn't for the Miami Heat. Duncan Robinson.
He just earns far too much money, dude.
If you trade him, he's still, I don't believe he's a pending free agent, but I really think that is somebody who...
The money doesn't work, though. That's the problem. So what's Duncan Robinson's on, like? Duncan Robinson spot, right?
I don't know.
Like, okay, he's on 90 million over 5 years, 18 million a year. Aaron Nesmith is on about... No, there's no way. Not if it's straight up. Like, Aaron Nesmith is earning $4 million a year. So you're going to need to find $12 million to make that salary work. So it's going to be tough in terms of like getting Miami to give up extra pieces. Who else are you going to tag in there to make up your side of that 12 million that's going to entice Miami? Who have Miami got that you want? They're not going to part ways with Tyler Hero for Aaron Nesmith. No. So it's going to be really difficult there to make that deal work. Would I like Duncan Robinson? Of course I would, especially swapping him out for Nesmith. But financially, with the way the cap's set up and the way Boston's roster construction is, that's just not a viable trade.
Makes sense. I'm trying to think now how much. I'm trying to see here. Do you know how much they're going to be working with this season? Because I know their salary cap here is 140 something million, I believe. So they're going to be working with what?
Barely anything, dude. I think they're looking at like part of the mid-level exception,
which is going to be what? Just a few $1 million.
Yeah, so it's going to be $6 million.
Oh, yeah.
Now they have trade exceptions they can use to make this deal work.
Yeah, they have a lot, not a lot of trade exception, but
yeah, they could, but none of them. You can't aggregate a player's salary on top of a trade exception. So they do have a $17 million trade exception for them, but that you can't fit Duncan Robinson into that. You know, they don't have a $90 million trade exception. They just so. You know, Duncan Robinson's out of the question completely, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Now, the other side of things is, are they willing to pay the tax? Because if they use the Evan Fournier trade exception, they're going to be a tax-paying team. Now, if they go to the finals and fall short in a game 7 or a game 6, they're probably going to be willing to pay a little bit of tax. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then we can start talking about using these TPEs. But otherwise, I'm just looking at this term, the taxpayer mid-level exception of around 6 million being where you can really get any form of talent through the door, which is why I've been quite conservative by being like JaVale McGee, Otto Porter Jr., because they're smaller deals on a 1 year to try and win a chip.
I'm with you. You're right. JaVale McGee. Let's get that. You're obviously way bigger on Twitter than we are. Let's get that trend going. Hashtag JaVale to Celtics. Game 7 tonight, 8:30 Eastern. I give you credit. Now, again, you're 6 hours ahead of me here in Massachusetts. Are you going to be riding it through, or are you?
No chance whatsoever. I have a system that works, and I don't deviate from the system at all. So I'll wake up, I'll turn all of my notifications off before I go to sleep. I'll wake up, I'll do what I need to do, you know, take the wife to work, maybe take the kid to school, whatever I need to do. Won't check social media, sit down, watch the game, then load up all of my socials and start the day. So I won't know the outcome of this until around about 5 a.m. Boston time. Wow. So I'll be ready to react when everybody's just waking up in the morning, right? So all I'm missing is the crazy takes and the negativity.
Yeah. Oh, that's really smart. Wow, I like that. No, that's really clever.
It's a system that works, so I don't deviate from it.
No, not at all. All right. So with this system, that's going to do it for us on this edition of the Sports Saga podcast. If you like what you saw, please consider liking, sharing, subscribing, follow us on social media using that description below. And again, this episode was brought to you by Aldias Electric. If you're in the Southeastern Mass and Rhode Island area and you need an electrician for your home, give Al a call today. His phone number is also in the description below. For Adam Taylor, who will be checking his stat lines at 5 a.m. local time, I'm Brady Kudo saying so long and go Celtics.